What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Um. Well, shit. This is like not the best lighting. This actually isn't bad. Not bad. We'll do that. What's up, everybody? Let's see the title. Let's see the title of the video. We're gonna talk about it. Um, Immediately, the first two jobs that come to mind are when I worked as a drug and alcohol counselor and when I worked in a nursing home. Those are the only two jobs that I have that are like, yeah, those was rough. Because of like the longevity of them. Drug and alcohol, I worked in there. Like if you combine when I worked at Gatehouse for about a year, almost a year, I was like maybe 10 months for them. And when I worked at Colonial House for about 2 years, because I interned and then worked. So about 3 years total. That was pretty tough. And then working in the nursing home was tough, but for different reasons. So I guess I'll talk about those two. Um, hey, come on now. Come on now. All right, so we're back to it. So I also worked at a hot dog factory, but I only worked there for about 3 days. I ended up throwing I ended up throwing the rack of hot dogs on the manager, so that didn't last too long. Well, I threw them at the manager. I missed and it hit the rack, and then I left out. I walked out, so that didn't last too long. But the nursing home was tough because I seen so many dynamics when I worked there. I seen sadness. I seen heartbreak. I seen some freaky shit. Like everybody there, not everybody, but a lot of folks there was fucking each other. Like it just was what it was, bro. A lot of that. But a lot of jobs are like that. A lot of jobs have like these relationships on the job, different coworkers dating. I've learned that through various working various small jobs at different points in time. So what you realize is that a lot of jobs have some type of dynamic like that, and because of that, like they all have that in them, basically, so to speak. So, but working at the nursing home, I've seen a lot of things. We had staff members who were violating codes. So staff members who were like, so staff members that pretty much, what's up, Julianne? So we had a staff member who was actually developed a relationship with a client. The client had MS. She was 50 years old. The staff member was probably in his 40s. And so he had developed a relationship with that client, which is against the rules. Um, Make sure you hit that like button when y'all coming in here. So you saw things like that at that job, and obviously he got fired and all those things. Um, really appreciate your time in the process of. Give me 1 second, y'all. Give me 1 second. Move, cat. My bad. Um, so the best thing about this place was the fact right on the office now we get back to go out, and I am sure I will be in the best. Oh, so anyway, let's get back to it. So the nursing home had a lot of different things about it that made it tough. One of them was simply just the type of work. Had a bunch of clients. Had a lot of clients at the nursing home. A whole floor was dedicated per social work, and I was a social worker. So, um, like as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, all right, well, hold up. I probably had upwards of like 50, 60 clients when I worked there. Hours are rough. But again, the job itself is one thing when you work at a nursing home, but it's the dynamics. Excuse me, I'm sorry. What the hell? Got goddamn hair in my mouth. More about it. Okay. Um, so when I worked at the nursing home, I saw a lot of things like that, and so the job itself was one thing, but it was the social component of the job. So dealing with your coworkers, dealing with the dynamics of the job, dealing with the long hours, you working overtime sometimes, you stay having to stay late. Like those were the things that made working in a nursing home difficult. The job itself wasn't that difficult. Like the job itself, if you could minimize some of the outside shit, like whether that was CNAs fighting with each other, CNAs no call, no showing. Uh, if you could minimize all of that, the job itself wasn't that hard. But I remember when I got there and the lady pulled me to the side and said, "Yo, about 2 weeks, some of them gonna start approaching." I'm like, "Who?" I'm thinking she's talking about the clients. You're talking about the CNAs. Um, and throughout my life, if I'm being honest with y'all, women have shown like steady interest throughout my life. Like I'm not a guy who I'm not one of those rappers that became a rapper and then got girls. Like I'm just gonna say it like that. Like I've women have shown interest in me. I've dealt with different women, um, but it's a little bit of an uptick when you go to a nursing home as a guy because you are like one of however many guys that are there. And this wasn't all of the CNAs, but there was a couple CNAs that made themselves available, threw themselves at me, and I was warned when I got in there, like, "Hey, your wife ain't here, and if you deal with any of these CNAs here, we're gonna find out." And so I made it a vow to not do that, but it got hard because there was some nice looking CNAs there. There was some nice ones. Um, but I also understood that once I delve into that world and put my foot into that world of like intermingling with coworkers, I was gonna be in some trouble. So I had to, so I made a conscious effort and decision to not do it. I did like, if I'd have been there longer, I would have cracked. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was single, I'm still single now, but I was single back then. Nothing really hold me back but my moral compass. So I was gonna fold. It was gonna happen. So, um, but working at the nursing home, no, you just come into a lot of things. One of the saddest things you come into working in a nursing home is like when families are taking advantage of the clients. So you got family members who know that they don't have the ability or the equipment or the resources to actually take care of this client who is bedbound or can't walk without assistance. But they'll take the client home, and this happened a bunch of times so they can get the check for the client being home. Happens a lot of times, right? And then that client will end up right back into the nursing home. It happens all the time, bro. Like there are people who are in and out of nursing homes like it's prison in the winter, like it's jail in the wintertime for a homeless person. For those of you who don't know, there are homeless people who will go out and commit a miscellaneous crime just so they can go to jail for 3, 4 months, so they ain't gotta be outside in the cold. There are people who do it. Like it's wild. It's a wild thing, but it really happens. So, um, so upon seeing that and going through those and seeing those things at the job, that made the nursing home hard, right? That made the nursing home hard. And then on top of that, after you have the job and you're working there, there's a lot that weighs on you. Like I remember one time I had a client and he had cancer, and I remember him crying like he had just got that. I had to do there's a little test you got to do with every client that comes in. Not a test, but there's like a little exam that you have to do with him. And so when he came in, man, and he was on my floor, and I sat down with him, and we sat down, and I had to do the little exam. And at the end of the exam, he ended up crying and was like, "Yo, I don't want to die. I don't want to die." And like bro, like that's hard to be around. That's hard of that's hard to be around. That's hard to deal with. That's hard. Like, that's not easy. It's nothing easy about that. And so I remember when he said that, I went back to the office, I sat down, I was like, yo, he wanna live. All he wanna do is live. And for a good portion of my life, I've been suicidal. I felt so fucking wrong for that. I felt so wrong for that. So it was hard to, again, it was hard being in that environment and being in that environment and just seeing the death over and over again. People were dying left and right. There was one client, every time he would go, he would get dialysis. He'd get dialysis every other day. I think it was like every like Wednesday. It was like Wednesdays and like Fridays or some shit. Something like that. He would get dialysis. And every time he'd come back from dialysis, he'd come back. He would come back like freaking out every time. It never didn't happen. He would come back freaking out every single time. And it got to a point where I remember his mother would call up, his mom would call up, and she would say, keep him on dialysis. But he was cognitive and he could speak for himself, he could talk for himself. He said, I don't want to do this shit no more. And so they knew that once he stopped going to dialysis, he only had about a week and a half of survival. Like he was only gonna live probably a week longer without dialysis. And so he ended up saying, I don't want to do this no more. I'm done. I don't want to do it. I'm tired of going back and forth to dialysis. I'm tired of doing all of that. And so he pretty much, he told the staff and said, look, I don't want to do this no more. And what up, bro? What up, Rick? And he said, I don't want to do this no more. So and because he was coherent, we have to take his word. So when he said it, we had to honor it. So we stopped taking him to we stopped taking him to dialysis. And once he got to dialysis, once he stopped going, about a week and a half later, he ended up dying. He died peacefully in his bed. Like he looked peaceful. So he ended up dying in his bed. And I remember I had to call his family and let them know that he was no longer with us, so on and so forth. And, but this was like a regular occurrence working in the nursing home. It was like a regular thing. Like this was like not obscure. This was not like, oh man, this was like, yo, this was gonna happen. And the clients with dementia, that's a hard thing to see. Right? I think there's 2 floors. If I'm not mistaken, when I was at the nursing home, there were 2 floors that were dedicated to dementia patients. You had and so that was hard to see. Hard to think that like, and this sounds crazy, but it's hard to think that these clients who have dementia, right, on a dementia unit, right, it's hard to think that they were once us, like they were once 25 and 30 and and running around and living life. It's hard to think that is what it is, but that is what it is. And that could be some of us. These clients with dementia, that could be some of us. And so seeing those different types of things working at that job, like again, the nature of a nursing home job, people will die, people will be admitted, people will be readmitted. Like that's the nature of it. But there was a lot of things intangibly within the company that were really fucked up. Like there were a lot of things that were just really fucked up. Like there's no other way to put it. They were fucked up. There was no other way around it. There were some bad things about the company. That's just bottom line what it was. Like I remember one client died there, and when the client died, for some odd reason, they wanted me to help carry the body. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that, bro. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I said, you got to carry the body downstairs. I'm not carrying shit, bro. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Not, and we're not supposed to do that. The CNA, like the social workers were not supposed to be carrying dead bodies. So I'm not doing that shit. Some people understood why I said that. Other people was like, no, man, you should have said, you can kiss me. I can fight. I'm not doing it. It gets to a point where you start having to say, yo, I can fight. Ain't anybody making me do that. And that was that. Man, go ahead, take that. I'm not doing that. Then, And I don't want to sound sexist or mean or anything like that. I don't want to sound nothing like that, yo. But I'm going to say this: when you're working with so many women, the gossipy and the chit chat, that's going to be at an all time high. So there was a lot of that shit going on there. There was a lot of women there who didn't like each other but kind of liked each other. So you'll see them together and they cool, and then one leaves and is like, fuck that bitch. And you're sitting there like, well, I thought y'all was friends. So it was a lot of that type of shit there too. And if you're around it enough, your name will be pulled into something. You didn't really gotta do much, but you're around it, so your name gets pulled into things. But because you're not too involved with anybody or anything there, it doesn't hold a lot of weight. It just gets pulled into something. So I remember distinctly when I got there, I was on the eighth floor. Eighth floor was like the eighth floor was tough because people were in and out. They come in, you do the intake when they get in, and then people were leaving like almost right away. Like people weren't staying there long. And so I was being cordial, I was being friendly with the staff there, and just hey, my name's Baron, whatever. Not going on my way, but hey, I'm the social worker on this floor. There's a woman there. Never forget her name. I actually don't know her name. I won't forget her face. It's only a body B. Nah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And I forgot. I don't even know her name, but I remember she had 4 kids. She had 4 kids. Don't know how many fathers, but she had 4 kids. She was like 26. And she had told somebody, "Oh yeah, he flirt with everybody. He trying to be with everybody. He trying to date everybody." I didn't ask for nobody's number. I didn't ask to go out with nobody. I didn't go out with nobody. I didn't know what she was talking about. There are a certain group of women who, if you give them any type of attention as a male, they're going to take that attention as if you're trying to take your shot at them. They don't know how to have a cordial relationship with a male coworker. Some people, and it's men like that too. Where they don't know how to have a cordial relationship with a female that they work with, right? There's women that do not have a cordial relationship with the male they work with, and men who do not have a cordial relationship with the female they work with. You'll see that all the goddamn time. All the time. And so I said, so when it got back to me, they said, yeah, man, she said, you flirt with everybody. I said, you trying to be with everybody. I said, no, I'm not. And I damn sure want to be with her, right? But these were the things that you really can't avoid. Because it's not like I did anything to warrant that. But when you're working with a whole lot of women, it's very gossipy. What's the old term they use? Chatty patties. Like, there's a lot of that going on. And so you kind of just have to prepare for that. So the social side, I would say, of working in a nursing home was probably worse than the actual job of working in the nursing home. Can you do me a favor? Hit that like button for me. That's probably actually worse than actually working in the nursing home. So seeing that and being around that, bro, it burnt me out really quick. It burnt me out real quick. What up, Chanter? Burnt me out real quick, and it was something that if I was going to survive in a nursing home long, I was going to develop some other ways of navigating it. A lot of people got their ass whooped at this nursing home. CNAs fighting each other. A lot of CNAs got their ass whooped. Yep. Like, not even like exaggerating. A lot of them did. A lot of them fought each other over dudes. Fought each other like just for various reasons. And so even at this, there was a matter of fact, I'll tell you another story about this nursing home. There was a client there. Now, I forgot the exact term, but he had a particular condition in which he was nonverbal. And he used to be in a group home. And in the group home, he used to be in the group home. And while in the group home, they had a certain amount of staff there. But the staff there were a bunch of like small women, so they couldn't physically move him as much. They couldn't do a lot with him. because even though he was nonverbal and had some mental cognition issues, some cognitive issues, he still was a man. He was still much bigger than them, much stronger than them. So when he would have attitudes or lashing out and all of that, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't physically do anything. So, long story short, I worked in a nursing home. I think I started working in a nursing home in probably May, right? So working there in May. I didn't leave that nursing home until about December. And the time of from May, was it May? And the time from May until December, in that time span, that client had been admitted, discharged, admitted, discharged, admitted, discharged for about 6 times. Like the system in which he was going in, the things in which he was going through, that facility he was living in that he would go back and forth to could not house him. They couldn't. They didn't have the manpower. They didn't have the structure. They didn't have the all the equipment needed, and he was just bouncing back and forth between our facility and their facility. It's one of those things, man. Like you see so much. Not only do you see the social side, not only did I see like the negativity of the social side, I also seen. Pardon me, I got cat hair. Wash my hands. Not only did I see the negative social side, I also seen the negative structural business side, and which what made working in a nursing home very difficult. Very difficult. Give me one second. Can you do a backflip? No, but you can shut the fuck up. Liquid. I don't know what that means. So the boat, like there were a lot of sides of that made that job very difficult. Excuse me. Now, if I worked in the nursing home more, then I probably would say the nursing home was the hardest job I've ever had. Like I can only imagine working in there for years. If I worked in there for years, then I would say that it is. But being as though I didn't work in there for years, being as though I worked there for maybe several months at the most, I can't give it to that. You know, and I got a lot of nursing home stories, man. If y'all ever want to hear some, let me know. Put it in the comments. If y'all want to hear something, I can give them to y'all. The job that was by far the hardest was working in drug and alcohol. Working as a drug and alcohol counselor, with my history, my background, my story with my parents and various family members and various people in my neighborhood, working as a drug and alcohol counselor was by far the hardest job I've ever had. And what made it difficult is that when you work as a drug and alcohol counselor, you are essentially their therapist, their life coach, and counselor, right? So therapist, that's when you do the clinical sessions, the one-on-ones, the group sessions, right? That's the therapy part of it, right? Then you got like the life coach part of it. You have to teach them a lot of life skills and go over life skills, and some of them already have decent at them, but a lot of them aren't. So you have to go over the life skills, talk about the life skills, talk about what life is like, get all of that stuff, all that stuff. And then the counselor part is the documentation, the structure, all of those things, right? So you have to essentially play multiple roles to these clients while also dealing with your own trauma, right? And while you're dealing with some of these clients, your trauma will be brought back to the surface. It's just the nature of the job. It's just the nature of the job. Your trauma, your issues, your struggles will be brought to the forefront because you'll see it in maybe one of your clients, or maybe one of your clients to say something that reminds you of your childhood. But it will happen. There's no other way around it. So working in a drug and alcohol facility, man, I seen so many. I see death happen. Death happened a lot. Clients would graduate and then die because they relapsed and died. That was a big thing. Clients fighting. Yeah, clients fighting. That happens. Uh, I think more or less than all of those things, the quality I saw the most, right? The quality I saw the most was the self sabotage from the clients, and honestly, I can relate to that more than most things that they talked about, because when you watch someone who's been given the answers, I'll be home Friday. We gotta run some duty. All right, bet, bet. I'm doing some Resident Evil after this. And I'll be doing some duty. But yeah, for sure. Um, when you have a client that comes to your facility, I worked there for 9 years and then cracked 3 chicks. Nah, I'm joking. Bro. It's but I have a before I continue talking about drug and alcohol, I got a question. Why do people look at it so bad to date coworkers? But when you look up statistics on when people meet their significant others, that um, um, all right. Anyway, most statistics say that people meet their partners in their jobs. Let me see. What are the statistics? Let me see. See, people meet. Let's find this out because I'm curious. Meeting online now, the most common way couples connect, especially younger adults. Let me see. Oh, well, look at these. These statistics say 63% of men younger than 30 report that they're single, defined as not married, living with a partner, or in a committed romantic relationship. Meanwhile, only 34% of women in the same age group describe themselves as single. The age gap appears much smaller in older groups according to the same survey. For people ages 30 to 49, 25% of men reported being single compared to 17%. That's just crazy. This is crazy. Man, leave me alone in my this is my good stuff. But I was going to say, it's funny that a lot of people say that you shouldn't date at work and you shouldn't date coworkers and all that. But a lot of relationships, if they're not developed online, they're always developed in either a work setting where people work together, gyms, bars, people where people frequent. So it's either work, gym, bars, or some shit like that. So it's kind of odd that people frown upon it, but I know it gets messy. I've seen it happen a lot of times where people date, right? People will date and at a job and then they break up and it's the ugliest shit in the world because somebody always wants to move on with somebody else at the job. So now it becomes just dumbass competition and whatever. But back to what I was saying earlier. Working in the drug and alcohol space, you have to play a lot of different roles. A lot of different shit happens. Uh, and documentation is a must. If you don't write it down, it never happened. If you don't write it down, that's how you look at it. If you don't write it down, it never happened. I'm gonna tell you. I'm not gonna say where this was at, but there was one job, one drug and alcohol place I was at, and they fell so far, but like I fell so far behind on notes that I had to come in there like maybe I had to come in there maybe like a week straight off the clock to catch up on notes because we were about to get audited. And part of why I fell behind on notes is that there was so much shit happening with staff. Like, I mean, not staff, but clients. So much shit was happening. Fights, arguments, it was just like a lot of stuff. And me already being bad at documentation, when you put me in an environment where it's not, it was so kind of up and down, which again is the nature of drug and alcohol. Like, you don't come in there and get a regular day. It's not, you don't get too many regular days. There's going to be a lot of sporadicness, a lot of craziness, it's just a lot of stuff that happens. That's just the nature of the job. And so I fell behind something terrible on notes, something terrible. I was able to catch up, but I did a lot to catch up. I came in off the clock, off hours, extra days, like off days. Like it was a lot, right? And so got all this stuff right, and I'll never forget it. I got all the stuff right. I went home. They gave me two slices of pizza, two slices of pizza, and I just went home after that. Went to sleep. That's all I did. I drove home and went right to sleep. And I didn't want to be bothered with nobody, you know. But I would just remember thinking to myself, yo, if I'm gonna work this hard, why not work this hard for me? That's all I could think of. If I'm gonna work this hard, I'm gonna stay up late. I'm gonna put in extra time. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. Why not do that for me? Why not say, all right, I want to do music. I want to stream, whatever I want to do. Let me put in that extra time for me. Because what I realized was that, and it was at this point. It was at this point where I was like, yo, I'm a small piece in this giant thing here. I'm a small piece. I hope generate X amount of dollars, whatever that number is. I don't know. And the people at the top make so much more than I make. It ain't about what they make. It's about the simple fact that at a point I couldn't even pay my rent. That's how bad it was financially. And when I started working, I was making $15 an hour, bro. Like just 15. I had a master's degree, and so I remember thinking, like, bro, if I'm gonna put all this extra time in for them, I gotta put that in for me. Granted, working your 9 to 5, working for a company, man, is already the structure of the company is laid out. The foundation is laid out. You just go in and do what you're supposed to do. When you're trying to create for yourself, don't nobody gotta tell me, BJ, you gotta record some music today. Hey, did you work on that song? Did you finish editing that video? Did you finish? No one has to tell. I gotta get up and do that myself. And if I can get up and do that for somebody else's company, let me develop my own and do it for me. Create for me. Like make it happen for me. And that was when I really kind of honed in on that thought. Like, I can't do this. This is y'all dream. This is y'all love. I like it, and I like helping people. But this ain't something I could be doing long term. And so, you know, that was a tough joint, but it was something I needed to know. I had to go through. One client at one facility, I think he left out. He went to go do something, came back drunk. Came back drunk as shit. And when he came back drunk. They made me on call that night. I was on call for that week. I think it's a week of on call. They called me. My phone is acting up because the towers in the area are all down. So supervisor comes in, he has to investigate the situation. They make the client who came in drunk, they make him sleep on the couch away from all the other clients. Come to find out, later that day, when I come in the next day to come to work, I come in, and then they have to separate him from the rest of the clients. And when they come in and do that, right, when they separate him from the rest of the clients, um, they put him into the office, and then he leaves the office and goes to the bathroom, comes back drunk. And my supervisor's like, "Yo, something's not right here." Found out he was and as he's doing this, right, at one point he sneaks out of the office, and it was fucked up because I was about to fight this client. This shit was about to go real bad. At this point in time, he's no longer a client though. He's being discharged for coming back to the property drunk. When you're in rehab and all of that, bro, you're not supposed to be drunk. That's a part of being sober, right? Is to not fuck around with all of that. But if you do, you will be kicked out immediately. If you've relapsed while you're in rehab, inpatient, you get kicked out immediately. Now they might send you to a 3/4 house or something, but you get kicked out immediately. So he ended up trying to he ended up cornering another client. So when he left my supervisor's office to use the bathroom, he snuck out, he went somewhere else, he cornered one of the other clients. I saw this and I said, I can't let this happen because this other client just got out of prison. He's trying to stay out of prison. So I came in and I jumped in between. I don't think I'm supposed to do that for de-escalation. I jumped in between because the one client that was fucking around, that got drunk, was much bigger than this other one. He was a good bit size bigger. And everyone's taller than me. But I'd rather you swing on me than you swing on him because he'll go back to prison. I'm not going to prison. So I jumped in the middle. I said, "Hey man," I said, "you gotta go back in the office, bro. You're not supposed to be in here. They gotta finish the paperwork." And he said something to me, and I just looked at him and said, "Look, bro, I said what I said. You're not supposed to be in here right now." So he looks at me. We have a little stare down. He ends up going back in there. They find out that he had some rubbing alcohol in his jacket. He had rubbing alcohol, like a little joint of rubbing alcohol. It was in his jacket. That's how he was getting drunk. And so there's so many moments like that, on top of you having to be a therapist and everything else to these clients. Drug and alcohol jobs are some of the toughest jobs you're ever going to have. Ever going to have in your life. It's rewarding. Don't get me wrong. It's rewarding. It's 100% rewarding, but it's tough. And then a lot of your coworkers are in rehab themselves. And one of the most heartbreaking things about working in these facilities is when your coworkers relapse. That shit fucks with you. It fucks with you. When you catch your coworker relapsing or the aftermath of them relapsing, it fucks with you, man. It fucks with you, bro. It does. It's one of the hardest jobs ever for me. Right? Because I got to deal with me and then figure out how to deal with you and then figure out how to help you while at the same time helping me. Which again goes back to when they say every therapist needs a therapist. It's the truth. Because throughout the course of the day, people are dumping trauma on you. They're dumping trauma on you. Talking about what happened to them when they were kids, adults, prison. They're talking about everything. So at the course of a week, after hearing these things over and over and over and over and over again, you realize, all right, man, I gotta find my own outlet. Because without my own outlet, man, I don't have a shot. So, yeah, man, drug and alcohol was a rewarding job because a lot of my family have struggled with alcoholism and different types of substances. But on the other side, man, you find yourself really struggling trying to help these clients out because you got to help you out at the same time. So I could talk so much more. There's so many stories about drug and alcohol and working in a nursing home. Even while I worked as a service coordinator as well, that was another tough one. I'm gonna give you one story about that one. I'm gonna give you one story about that, and I'll get off. Working as a service coordinator, it was tough because when I got hired, we were a hybrid company. When I started working, we were in person. That means I was driving to clients' houses almost every day. And there was one client in particular, I'll never forget this time. And this happens a lot where clients fall through the cracks. I show up and I got to interview the client to see what services they qualify for. If I could pick one record deal, who would I sign with? Either Maybach Music, Dream Chasers, Roc Nation, State Property, Death Row, or Bad Boys. They all offer you a deal. Ah man, Dream Chasers is that's Meek, right? I don't think State Property even exists. I would say Roc Nation. Now I don't know how they structure their deals, but I would say Roc Nation. Roc Nation. Um, but again, I don't know how they structure their deals, so it might not. That might be a horrible pick. But when I showed up to this client's house to do the interview for him, this client, um, oh man, I'm gonna talk about that one tomorrow. The service coordinator job. There's so much, but I showed up to do this guy's intake stuff to see what he qualified for, and this client was like 80% blind in one eye, was a diabetic. Uh, like he had a lot of problems, like physical problems that prevented him, and they only qualified him for like 3 hours, for like 3 4 hours of work. I mean 3 4 hours of caregivers. Shit like that happens all the time. Like he physically needed them, but then you got guys that cheat the system and get caregivers for 7 days a week. And there's a scam with that. There was a scam with the service coordinators that I did. There was a scam going on for that in that company. Yeah, he was getting caregivers for. We had clients. We had clients that was getting 24-hour care. 24-hour care. Yep. And those were typically clients that kind of cheated the system. Most of them, like they would, like there was a group of people, and I'm gonna get into this more later. I ain't even gonna talk about it today because it's a whole nother conversation. But there was clients that were like, say they were from this country. There was a country called Nepal. Yeah, it's the same. You know what, Reek? Reek, when I worked as a service coordinator, I was the step before y'all. I was the one that organized the hours and I was the one who helped organize the hours and what they care for. You guys were the caregivers. Like I remember, because I remember having they work for certain companies like Angels on Call and shit like that. Like these companies were the companies like that caregivers work for, and they would come work for the client. So I was the step, I was the intake process, I was the paperwork process before they got to y'all. And there was a company, okay, the country, it was called the country of Nepal. There were people in Nepal, and this sounds fucking bizarre, but there were people in Nepal who owed debts. They owed debts to various people in Nepal. So what was happening was there were people in Nepal who had connections, and they would get people to rent houses or buy houses here in the United States. The people who owed the debt would then come here, right? For whoever they owed the debt to. The person that owed the debt will be told that you are deaf, mute, and blind. That you're deaf, mute, and you only know sign language from our particular country that only we know. No one else knows. So they can't communicate. So they would have somebody that the person who owed the money wouldn't be saying nothing. They'd just sit there and be quiet. Right? And the person who they owe the money to will be the one talking to me, like the service coordinators. And then they'll be saying, look, this person's deaf, mute, and they only know sign language that we taught them. They're going to need 24-hour care. Throughout their process of doing this, they would get the 24-hour care, and the money that they are owed, they will be paid through what they make as the caregiver for this person. Happened all the time. And people started getting busted. They started catching them on the scams, but the scam had been going on for so long that people were still getting away with it. And bro, that shit happened all the time, bro. All the time. All the time. all the time. Bro, cheating the fuck out the system, bro. And I caught him one time. I caught him in real life. Because I was in there, like, what happened was, I was watching a more experienced service coordinator go to this house. So I was in there, I was just shadowing. So I'm shadowing him. He's in there, he's talking to the woman, right? This house looked like the set of a movie. And what I mean by that is when you walked in there, there was like random pictures on the wall, right? Like there was like random pictures on the wall, bro. That was like you got them for like Rite Aid, like random fucking pictures on the wall of random people. And so I'm looking around at all this shit, bro. And I'm like, what the fuck is all this? Like just random pictures on the wall. And did this. It was a nice look. It was a big house. It was one of the modern houses, a modern house. But when you got in there, it just was an eerie feeling. So I'm sitting there, and then I'm looking around, and I'm hearing the shit that the person's saying, like the shit they saying to him. I'm looking around, but you know we from Philly, so we observing. We gotta look and make sure ain't nobody over in the bushes with no gun and no. We gotta be observant. This is just the nature of being in Philly. If you're in Philly, if you were born and raised in Philly, or you know if you're raised in any type of hood, you're taught to be ultra observant. I gotta know who the fuck is around me because they can get me. I ain't with that. So I'm looking around and then when it clicked, I said, this is a shakedown. This ain't it. And as soon as I realized it, right, the client looked at me like this and wouldn't break eye contact, was just looking at me like just wide eyed. I'm like, who the fuck is you? I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, who the fuck is you looking at like that? I'll fuck you up. Like, so that's the day when I was saying, I'll fuck you up. I'll fuck everybody else in this bitch. Can't nobody beat me in this bitch. Right? So, because now I'm starting to get a little hot. I'm starting to get a little antsy. So I tie my sneakers up. I throw my shit in my bag. I got my bag right next to me. Because I'm like, if we got to do something stupid, I'm with it. I'm fucking this shit up. This is what I said to myself. But, long story short, we finished the intake there. And I got finished shadowing. And when it was over, we left. I said, yo, was that like a shakedown? He said, yeah, it was. 100%. 100%. They're going to get caught too. And I said, yo. It blew my mind. It blew my fucking mind. But it was what it was. That company ended up getting sued, and I was a part of a class action lawsuit. I ended up getting a check for that working at that company. You know what I'm saying? I ain't going to say what company it was, but yeah. They ended up getting sued. Because we were working like overtime hours and shit like that, so they ended up getting sued. I ended up getting a nice little check for working for them. So, the company was like pretty much like I wasn't getting shaken down or he wasn't per se, but there's a certain ritual and a certain routine in which they do it when they're shaken down. Because they'll say, look, we need 24-hour care. This person is deaf and blind and mute, right? And they only know side, well, they're deaf. They'll say they're deaf, they're mute, and they're like 80% blind in one eye or some shit like that. And they need care 24 hours, and they'll do the whole shake and dance for them. And even as a service coordinator, even if you catch it, it's not your job to call it out and shut it down. You got to go through with it and then go through a whole legality process to get them caught. Bro, it was just a wild time, man. I can go in on that forever because it was a wild joint. It was like, yo, what the fuck? Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, and that's 100% what happens. The one who owe the money don't have a choice. They're being extorted basically because they owe money, and the person that they owe the money to got all the resources and the power. So because of that, they have to listen or they have to abide by whatever they're saying. And it's just, bro, it's just a wild John. It's a wild John, bro. I'm going to go in more detail about it because it's so crazy. So crazy. Oh, Rick, man asked about you today. I was on the phone with him today earlier. You know what I'm saying? He asked about you. But nah, bro, it's a wild John, bro. It's a wild John, dog. Wild John. But I could go further in on it, but there's so much to it. When they're paid in full. The way that they were getting caught was that we would keep sending service coordinators out. We'll keep sending service coordinators out, and then eventually the shit will stop making sense, and then you'll catch some shit like you'll catch some random shit going on, some shit that don't make sense. You'll be like, this ain't right. Like you'll catch some shit going on, and then we report it. They investigate, and then they find out it's a scam. It's a scam. Happens all the time, bro. That was the job I made the most money at too, but it was the most bullshit. It was the most bullshit, bro. It was the most bullshit. No. Some of them did. Some of them did. Depends on what they owe. Depends what they owe. But once they get caught, they're going to jail. So they're going to jail for fraud. So it don't even matter. But the system they had was so foolproof. They would have Fall Guys and bro, the system was foolproof like a motherfucker, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you're right. Yeah. But some of them would have like Fall Guys. And they had relationships with realtors. And they had relationships. They had all these relationships that allowed them to fly into to manipulate and break the system as much as possible. Yeah. Yeah. It's sick. That part I never learned. That part I never learned. Never learned that part. Cause I lasted there for about 6 months. So once they pay off their debt, I'm not sure what happens. But I know a lot of them end up not paying off their debt because guys get caught up and shit like that. So it becomes a bro. It's a wild joint. It's a wild joint. But Reek, I'm gonna hop off this joint. I'm gonna talk more about that later because that actually I'm gonna hop on live tomorrow with that one because that's a good one. That's a good one. We could talk a lot about that. OJ, relax. But Reek, I love you, bro. I'm hopping off this joint. I'm about to get on stream, play some Resident Evil, see if I can beat that joint in under 7 hours. But love you, bro. I'm getting off this joint.